Hi there, Steve Kaufman here. Today I want to talk about Arabic grammar and how I am coping with Arabic grammar, or not coping, or at least explain my strategy. All right. Now, if you look up on the internet which languages are difficult and stuff, Arabic comes up there as difficult. Uh, if it takes 6 months to learn German, it's supposed to take 2 years to learn Arabic, and I can see that, and it's right up there with Chinese as a difficult language, apparently. So, how am I dealing with that? Well, my basic approach to learning hasn't changed. I simply listen and read. I have listened to these many stories 10, 20, 30 times, and there's a total of 60 stories, and I would say that a lot of them now, I basically know all the words. I understand everything there. What I hear when I'm listening is instant meaning to me. I'm so familiar with hearing these words, these verbs, nouns, adjectives, that it's meaning to me. I'm not concerned about what I can say. My known word count at LingQ is around 1,800. And I have said before that it's only when I reach 3,000 known words at LingQ that I will start speaking to people. And that's still a month or two away, but that's fine. Now, the grammar. I'm beginning to become aware of certain things in Arabic grammar. And in fact, I even have, a book, which I have flipped through occasionally. And every time I read it, it's as if I'm reading it for the first time, because I forget most of the stuff that's written in there. One of the things in Arabic is that not everything that you say or hear is actually written for you. So a word which ends in it might actually, you have a tun that's added to it, or a t or something, depending on whether it's, and I'm not entirely clear on whether it's the nominative or the genitive, and I don't worry about it, because all these words that I'm hearing, and often too in Arabic there's a liaison onto the next word. I'm not worrying about this stuff. Occasionally I look it up. It says that the genitive is this way, and the nominative, and the feminine, and the masculine and stuff. And I never retain any of this stuff. But it's just that I become increasingly aware as I'm listening. Whereas the first time I might only have heard, what was it? Sayara. Sayara is a car. Sayarat. Sayarat is plural car. Sayarati or sayaratun. I become more aware of that final little sound that isn't written for me. And I'm quite comfortable with that. I'm quite comfortable with just letting the language come into me, and at some point I will, on the, nth time when I read through this little, not so thick grammar book, some of the stuff will become even clearer. Because if I see there that there's 8 types of verbs, as it says in this book, 8 types of verbs in Arabic, I am not going to go through and I try to understand how these verbs are different and then try to remember how they're different. It just isn't going to work, and in my experience. And it reminds me that there was actually a gentleman who commented, to judge by the icon here, who commented and said, everybody, this is D. Sean Forsyth, commenting on one of my videos here at YouTube, said, everybody learns by focusing on a thing and receiving lots of input of all kinds in mostly random order, and the brain sorts this stuff out beyond our level of conscious awareness. And then we begin to sort the thing out ourselves on the conscious level. So this is it. We are receiving all this stuff. But teachers, he says, who learn this way, because they're humans, but then they systematize everything and they give it to students in a systematic fashion that is totally unlike how teachers themselves learned the thing to begin with. So the ordering and systematizing and rule forming and all that stuff can only come after a ton of stuff has actually been absorbed. And this is such an important point. I totally agree with Sean Forsyth. And it reminds me of something else that on Twitter, someone that I follow, was it Twitter or LinkedIn, I don't know, commented on the fact that if we learn things, it's what's called semantic lists semantic context versus thematic concept. If you try to learn all the colors, all the parts of the body, all the different names of relatives, names of fruits and vegetables as a batch, it's very, very difficult. On the other hand, if these pop up in various bits of content that you're listening to, eventually red, green, orange, apple, banana, it starts to click in. So I think the important point here is that I believe for a majority of learners, systemizing things like Arabic grammar, in fact, doesn't make it easier to learn. At some point, you can go and review what you have already experienced, and reading some of these rules and explanations and examples is going to help highlight things that you have already noticed. Like I have noticed these things in Arabic. I notice that in the verbs, depending on whether it's I, you, he, she, we, that the verb, the prefix changes. I'm not entirely sure, but I'm getting more and more comfortable. I'm starting to recognize it. If it's turidu an, that's a female that said that otherwise it would be yuridu an, or so there are things that I start to notice, but if I had been fed all of that up front, it would have discouraged me. So my way of coping with Arabic grammar, which I gather is quite complex, is to not be too fussed about the fact that it's complex. By the time I've had enough exposure and have become aware of stuff, and the brain has started sorting things out on its own, because again, my total focus is on input. I don't expect to be able to speak, to say anything until the brain has been fed enough. And I certainly don't want to speak to anyone if I don't understand what they're saying. So I'm focusing entirely on getting this into my brain, and that in this way, it doesn't matter that it's complex. It doesn't matter. By the time I have all that input, it won't be so complex. Whereas if I'm faced with the complexity of Arabic grammar up front, I would find that daunting, intimidating. So that is how I am coping with Arabic grammar. And I think probably the same principle applies to learning other languages. So thank you for listening. And if you enjoy these videos, please subscribe.